Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody.
So here we are on another day, and I hope you're doing great today. I hope it's been a fabulous start to your day, and that's going to carry out that energy all day long. It's important. Hopefully you've had some time with God to talk to Him, to listen to Him, and to do the things that, make life great. And that's that, the secular world talks about meditation and all those things. We're way ahead of that game. It's not a meditation game. It is a divine appointment with God on a regular basis, because there's no one with all the answers except for Him. Through Jesus, through the Holy Spirit who speaks to you. And here we are in the Easter season. Now, I'll say Easter season. Passover is a few weeks after Easter. So we're talking about the season because it's this area of time. There are external threats and there's internal threats that are coming your way, that are already in your life, that's been in there probably since you were born. And there always will be external and internal threats. One of the number one things that is important for us to do is to stop focusing on things we cannot control. What about the things that you cannot control? How many of those things do you worry about? And here's some of the things that are external that will happen. People will try to involve you in their negative conversations and battles, and it is sideways energy. They'll try to involve you in gossip, which the scriptures talks about staying away from. The tongue can be a very evil thing, and it is in most cases. That's why people who are quieter seem to be more intelligent, or at least they appear to be. They appear to be more revered. So leading students and families to Jesus and salvation is the Great Commission. That's not sideways energy. But what you may be facing then is internal threats. Threats from your past, your low self-esteem, little voices that may be evil voices that are trying to say to you, you can't do that. You failed before. No one wants to listen to you. No one really wants to hear this. And from the external, good people will be saying things to you that seem to be good, but they will throw you off track. So that's the external. People will try to involve you in their negative conversations and battles, and it is sideways energy, as I just said. Leading students and families to Jesus and salvation is the Great Commission. Disciple making and nurturing is the one simple but difficult, most important focus of our entire life. Good people with good intentions will try to distract you. Hey, come do this over here. Hey, come on over here. Oh, you know what? Those people don't. Those people won't. You can't trust those people. I said good people, didn't I? Good people will say those things to you. Good people. Not intentionally, but will throw you off track because they're not focused on the same goals that you're focused on. They're not going the same way. In fact, if you're a leader, those people will try to get your attention. Jesus always had external voices trying to get His attention, and He always put them in their place. Most of them, He did it in a kind way, except for those people who He knew were legitimately trying to threaten Him and threaten the people around Him. Choose to hang out with great people and stay focused. I believe a few years ago it says you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So find those great people that are achieving goals, that seem to have a good relationship with Jesus Christ and God the Father, and hang out with those people. Have Bible studies with those people. Spend time with them. And we talked about mentoring before. Never ask anyone could you be my mentor? And you don't want anybody asking you, could you be would you please be my mentor? That's kind of awkward. Be a mentor, get mentors without asking them. Spend time with them, take them out for a meal, go play golf, do whatever it is that you do. Play games. My son, who will edit this, is tonight having a game night with some friends. He and his wife are invited another couple over, and they'll do a game night with them. That is mentoring, believe it or not. That's discipling, believe it or not, because you're spending real time with real people, laughing and having fun and letting down your guard so that you see who each other is. You're a great influence because real people are real people. They do fun things. They do hard things. Life is easy, fun, hard. I love what my friend said, Maury Buchanan, who is a missionary to students. He had a group called Mission Discovery, and now he's passed that down to a couple of other people since he's retired. He would say, we paid a lot of money for therapy. And so when people ask me how I'm doing, I say I'm either happy, sad, glad, or mad. He said, I learned that in therapy. I'm either one of those things, happy, sad, glad, or mad. How are you doing today? Well, I'm happy. Well, that's an interesting answer. Choose to hang out with those great people that have goals, that are learning, that are changing, and that aren't interested in gossip, but are interested in talking about things that can change other people's lives and change the world. Spend time with those people. If people just want to talk about other people and gossip about them, you're not going anywhere. Stop trying to be all things to all people, by the way. You're talking about student ministry. Here's a thought I had after listening to several seminars. If your church is primarily homeschoolers, why aren't you focusing more on homeschoolers? Stop trying to say you're all things to all people. You're not. Because homeschooling parents don't necessarily want their kids to be with other students that are from public school or even private school. They're homeschooled for a reason. Sometimes those homeschoolers are very well-rounded and they can focus and work with anyone. But many times their family does that for a reason. So if that's your main crew, then focus on that crew and have them invite other homeschool students. Focus on what God gave you. Make an exclusive high schoolers or homeschoolers high school night each week for homeschool kids. Maybe your church is saying, no, you've got to invite all the students. Okay, we'll do that. Do one night with everyone invited. Do another night with just homeschool students. And if it's band students that you're the closest with, have another night that's just for band students or music or drama kids. All those are in the arts. Invite those students. Maybe there are actually students there that do paint and draw and write poetry. What about gamers? There's a time when we would actually, at the early stages, start having students bring their games. And we had given some criteria, no violence, no cursing, different things like that. And they would bring games. I loved media, so we would set up sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stations and have them bring their games and gaming stuff and have them share with other students. Sometimes there were the big screens. We had these giant screens in our gym and projectors, so we would do some on those screens and some on the smaller TVs as well. What about sports students? Maybe you're more of a sports jock, that sort of thing, and that was your gig, and that's who you relate with the most. Instead of just blending with them, if the church makes you just do that, and once again, if you're at the beginning of your ministry, focus on your strengths first. Don't focus on your weaknesses. I love what a guy by the name of Dr. Maxwell said, Dr. John Maxwell, who is one of the top leaders in leadership training in the world. And he said, you know what? If you're not good in English, why are you focusing on English? If you're better at physics, then focus on physics. Focus less on the other things that you're weakest in. If you're a football player and you are a great quarterback and you're great at passing, stop worrying as much about some of the other agilities as much as you are passing. They got you there because you were a great passer or a great leader within the team. Or if you're a baseball or softball player, maybe you're a better catcher. That means you control the field. Not only do you catch the ball the pitcher's got coming at you, but you focus on those things that you are the best at in business, in student ministry, in ministry period. people are going to be gravitated to you that are like you. Why not, in the beginning of your ministry, focus more on them instead of trying to just spread yourself thin? I did that for many years, but we were actually focused and trained through Youth for Christ and Campus Life to focus on the leadership students first. Focus on them in every school, public school that you go to, because students are already following them. You say, well, that's rude. That's wrong. You should be focusing on the weaker students, the ones that are having the most problems. No, those students will come, is what they're saying. You will be able to focus on them, and you'll be able to focus on students that are going to try to drain you of all your time, but they're not doing it because they want to learn. They just want your attention. They're needy. But if you focus on leadership students, they are used to leading more people, and they are used to doing things that change their world. And when you involve them with Jesus Christ and they ask Christ into their heart, then they more openly share their faith. And then all the other levels of students will come. And that's what happened in many cases. And we had students of all of these areas that I'm talking about here. But if I had been even more focused, you would niche down, which is what the business world talks about. And you'll look at Jesus. He did get various types of people, but he also got people that were like-minded, people that were after God's own heart, people that didn't even know how much God loved them and how much he saw that they were like him. So what about niching down and focusing one day a week on those students that you're attracted to and are attracted to you, and build from there? And convince your one board member, two board members, or your parents' groups. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the most for your students. So we're not always going to focus on everybody. There's times you're going to focus, and maybe you have every other week that you'll focus on a different group. But you keep revisiting those groups as you find out which groups are the strongest. Students with low grades, but big dreams. What about that group? There are leadership students there. One of the students that was in our group was just that guy. He was from a very tough family life. They were business people. They were from another country, but they felt neglected as kids. All they got to do was go from school to work, and that was it. The parents loved it when church people actually asked them to go to their youth groups and stuff, because that was their other out and other place to go. But it was churches that involved those students that had no other place to go except for their family's business and then back home. But some of those students became great business owners, great influencers in our world. And so focus on the students that you gravitate to and are most like you, but also make sure that you do include others. But don't forget that your strengths are why you are where you are. Stop trying to be something for everybody when that's not working. I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again because it's a great story. Be something to somebody. First of all, Andy Stanley is a pastor of a very, very large church in the North Atlanta area. He didn't baptize people anymore because his staff said, there's just too many people and everybody's going to want you to baptize them. You can't baptize everybody. But Andy came to him one day and he said, listen, my friend so-and-so over here wants me to baptize him and I'm going to baptize him. They said, you can't do that because if you baptize one person, then you've got to baptize every person. And he said, no, that's not true at all. He says, just because I can't baptize everybody doesn't mean I can't baptize somebody. Jesus focused on somebody individually many, many times. Look throughout the Gospels and try to point out those individual times that Jesus isolated himself, even from his disciples, to focus on a person who he saw as an influencer in their neighborhood. That's all I've got for now. But there'll be another Youth Worker on Fire next week.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.